Thanks, guys. It's really, really, really nice to be here. God damn it, it's nice to be here. My wife and I had a baby 6 months ago, and this is like the third time I've been out of the house. So I'm just a little stunned right now. Yeah, you guys are right to stay very quiet when I say we had a baby 6 months ago. No, you're right, because sometimes I say, we had a baby 6 months ago, and the audience goes, woo! And I'm like, relax, like, it's just gonna turn into another fucking person. Like, yes, he's the most wonderful thing that's happened to me, but to you, he's gonna be another car in traffic one day. You shouldn't be that excited. And also, when I hold him, I just look at him, he's so sweet, and I just see so much promise and hope, and I already know I'm gonna do anything I can to just make his way forward and nurture him and guide him the best that I can. And unfortunately, that means that one day he comes to me and says that he started a men's rights podcast. I gotta subscribe to that Patreon. So, sorry, ladies. Family first. I will say that becoming a father has made me a lot more patient and empathetic with just what people are going through, and just got a lot more, I just give the world so much more grace now. And by that I mean, when I'm walking around New York City and I see some guy in the bushes just jerking off, I used to be like, ew, gross, and now I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe he has a baby at home, okay? Did you think about that? It is hard to find the time, okay? Everyone out here is doing their best. Let's don't get the cops involved. And look, nobody was more scared to be a dad than me, okay? Like, I had actual panic attacks that involved, like, tweaked meds. It was really, really rough. And I mean, look, this was a buzzer beater for us. I'm 46, my wife's 42. There was no not doing it, but there was an awful lot of, we'll get ready on the way. Yeah, my dad, one of the things that made it really hard was my dad, in 2020, he was diagnosed with ALS, and it progressed pretty rapidly, and by the end of 2021, it took his life. And I spent all of 2020 and 2021 helping to take care of him. And that was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. And I hope it is the hardest thing I ever do in my life. But I remember saying to my wife, like, listen, I spent the last year, we spent a year, spending a month in Virginia taking care of my dad, and then coming up to New York to do a month of IVF stuff, and then back to my dad, and just kind of ping-ponging between really difficult encounters with the medical complex. So I told my wife, I was like, I spent a year changing my dad's diapers. I changed his diapers. I fed him baby food by hand. And I sat up on the couch next to his bed till like 5 o'clock in the morning a lot when he had night terrors. He'd have this night terror that he was dying, and he'd wake up yelling, and then he would realize that he was dying. And I had to help him out with that. And I was glad to do it, but I don't have any gas left in the tank. I can't do this again. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. And then, but below that was more like, my dad was a great, great example of what it is to be a dad. I mean, I've never, ever been more loved and understood by somebody that fundamentally doesn't understand me at all. Yeah, I mean, just, he was in the CIA and then became a home inspector after that. He's a real meat and potatoes guy, Clint Eastwood movies. He's not trying to fuck with any subtitles, okay? That's my dad. I have chosen to spend my life telling stories about my feelings on very small stages. So we differ, but he loved me anyway, and I loved him. I don't know, he's so loving and patient and wise, and I always wanted to be able to call on that because I'm loving. And I would need that when we had a baby. And I don't know, there's this African proverb that says, when an elder dies, a library burns. And I felt that one. And you know what? I said I did this one time. I told people the African proverb thing, and they were like, "Well, which tribe was it? Which country?" Don't be so reductive. It's not a country, you know. Don't be so reductive. And I was like, okay, fair enough. But I do think it's safe to assume that an entire continent respects its elders more than we do in America. And also, you know, what about that great, you know, Canadian, American, North American proverb, right? Business in the front, party in the back. Okay, it goes two ways. But yeah, my dad and I did not always get along so great. Like when I was in high school, I just got my driver's license, and he was running a business, and he was just like, okay, you know what? Go pick your mom up from her colonoscopy. And when you're 16, you're like, hell yeah, a chance to drive, you know? I'll do it. So, you know, I went to the hospital, and, you know, I went into the room, and the nurse said, here, right here, your mom's on this table. As she comes out of the anesthesia, she'd like to see you. Just, you know, wait patiently. And I was reading a copy of The Stand by Stephen King at the time. And so, you know, I read that for a fair bit. And then here's the thing. They had left the fiber optic camera coiled up on the table on the stand next to my mom's bed. It was still on. And I could see an image of the room on the TV screen up here. It was like 1992. I'd never seen anything like this before, right? Like, forget about the resolution on your new iPhone, okay? Like, back then, we didn't have, if there were cell phones, you had to be a billionaire to have that cell phone because it was the size of cinder blocks, and you had to hire somebody to help you raise it to your head, you know? And so I was looking at it, I was like, could you, like, what's the resolution on one of these things? Could you, like, read a line of text with it? There's really only one way to find out. And so I grabbed it and opened my copy of The Stand and was doing like this and looking at it on the TV, and I was just like, holy shit, look at that. It says, the dark man strode down the dusty highway. This is incredible. And they washed it off, relax, you know, like, and right then a nurse came in the room and says, what are you doing? And you know when you're a teenager and you're completely busted and it makes you mad, so you just fight? And I was like, no, what are you doing? What kind of show are you running here? So who left this camera on and let an unsupervised teenager into the room? That's what I'd like to know. And she's like, you don't have a leg to stand on, and you know it. If your mother was awake for any of this, she would be mortified. And then she left the room, and I heard from the table, my mother said, I was awake for all of that. And I am mortified. So, you know, we went home. She snitched me out to my dad immediately. And my dad was like, what the hell were you thinking? You know, and I said, Dad, it's not about thinking. He goes, oh, no, I know it wasn't about thinking. But, and I was like, well, they didn't, like, put up a sign that said not to do it. He was a sign. And I was like, listen. They put no smoking signs on every flat surface of that hospital, so they know how to communicate when it's important, all right? He chose not to. He says, shut up. Look, there are things about being a mature adult that you just know, okay? And nobody has to put up a sign, nobody has to tell you, you just know them. Because to actually do them would be so unbelievably stupid. So you just don't do them. Nobody ever tells you, you just don't. And I was like, what? Come on, man. And then he just leaves the room, and I was just sat there grumbling, listening to Jane's Addiction or something. Just dad thinks he knows it all, you know? And then, you know, whatever. Years go by, and I will say that Donald Trump divided this country, but he brought my father and I together. As bad as he was for everyone else, he gave us a reason to call each other 4 times a week and just be like, what the hell? And he was like, I don't know. It didn't work that way when I was in the government, you know, and we gradually discovered that we shared values, you know, and we talked all the time. And he always answered the phone whenever I called. He'd be on the treadmill at the senior center, just like, I can't really talk, but what's going on? And I was like, Dad, did you see the news? He was, no, I don't see the news. My dad was legally blind. And then I would read it to him, and he was like, oh my God, well, I'll call you after. And we just had that relationship. And I learned so much from him, and none of it about raising a child. And then, and then, you know, he died, and that library burned. So a couple months after his funeral, my wife and I really needed a vacation, but we wanted to be near my mom. So we got an Airbnb in Virginia Beach, which is right near where I'm from. And we could go home and help out and still enjoy the beach. And we thought, you know, this pandemic's been really hard on my wife, Erica's mom, too. Let's bring her. And so you got to know a couple things about my mother-in-law, okay? First of all, she's exactly this tall. She immigrated from Greece when she was 18 because there were no opportunities for women to be educated in her village when she was growing up. And she came to America and she started drinking milk. She believes in milk. You understand? She doesn't like the taste of it, she believes in it because she was 4'10" when she moved here, and she drank American milk until she made it up to a half an inch past 5 feet. And so she drinks milk like a teenage linebacker every day. And she's an artist, and so she gets me in ways my parents never did, and I love that relationship with her. But you have no idea how many like norms and rules govern your behavior until you meet somebody that respects none of them, right? None. She is doing her own goddamn thing, let me tell you. And for example, everybody else, like in 2020, we got into like baking, you know, sourdough bread or knitting or whatever. She spent 2020 getting real into weed. Like focusing on it, you understand me? She lives in the Beacon Hotel, she buys it from the bellboys, and she would text us, she always texts us and it says quick call, and what that means is call quick, it's gonna take as long as it takes. And then we were getting ready to meet up with some friends for like a socially distanced park hang, first one, you know, just quick call. And we're like, we gotta go. She goes, you must call me right now. And so we called her and we're like, what's up? And she's like, you know, I have realized I am completely handicapped when it comes to my use of color in my painting. I have been a screaming fraud for decades. And I understand nothing about color theory. And I was just in the background, you know, because my wife's talking to her, I was like, lady, you're high, what's the news flash? You know, like, she's like, you, shut up, you have no idea. I can perceive shades of blue with an intensity when that marijuana is in my system that you could not possibly understand. And I was like, I have understood it since I was 15, thank you very much. She is 2 weeks away from calling us up, you know, quick call. Did you know that if you take the dark side of the moon and the Wizard of Oz and merge them, what a ride, man, you know? So we got that going. So it was the last day of our holiday. It's, we moved out of our Airbnb. It's Labor Day weekend and my wife's birthday. And we're like, let's spend the day on the beach before we go back to my mom's for a little birthday dinner. And so, you know, we're sitting there on the beach, having a big time. And we were given, my mother-in-law, we're just giving her gummies because we're doing fertility stuff, so we couldn't have them. And we're not really giving them to her. It's more like feeding dolphins at SeaWorld. She's just snapping them out of the air. And they are having zero effect on her. None. You know, like in King Kong when he's stomping down the road and they're shooting him full of tranquilizer darts, he's just like, "Blah, you can't stop me." That's how it's affecting her. Not at all. And then I got up to say, I'm gonna go to the car and get something to drink. Would anybody like anything? And she goes, yes, why don't you bring back that jug of milk? And I was like, oh, you mean the jug of milk that's been sitting in a metal trunk in the sun for 4 hours, that one? Yes, what's the matter? I like milk. And I was like, you're not gonna make 5-2 happen, okay? Like, it's just not, shut up, okay? Like, I like the milk, and you know, why can't I have it? And I was like, well, I just don't think it's gonna pour out of the hole in the jug anymore, you know? Like, what's your, you know, and she's like, just get it. So I got it for her. She's sitting there on the beach, slugging a gallon of hot milk, popping gummies. She's watching dolphins jump. And she even thought it was her birthday, you know? And then so we leave, and we get in the car to go back to my mom's place, and we're on the highway. And sorry. I've told this story a million times, and this part always cracks me up. She leans forward from the back seat as though, and says this thing as though all of America has been talking about it all week. She says, hey, what do you think, what's gonna happen with Stephen King's son now that dog ate his buttocks off? I was like, what? Yeah, you know, I heard it on WNYC. Stephen King's son was attacked by a dog and it consumed the meat of his buttocks. It ate his ass off. I was like, no, it didn't. And she's like, God damn it, you never believe me when I have to tell you something important. And I was like, I would argue this is not that important, you know? And she's like, no, Erica, Google it, Erica. And the thing is my wife, Erica, uses Google all the time. And my mother-in-law uses Erica to Google all the time. Calls her to tell her to Google stuff. She says, Erica, Google it, look it up. And Erica's Googling away, and she's like, nah, I'm sorry, I'm really pulling stuff about Cujo here. Starting to think you might be mixing a few things up. She goes, no, goddammit, no, I know what I heard. You must respect me. You know, you think Google can solve all of your problems, don't you? And I was like, you just fucking asked us to Google, and she's like, shut up. You know, she's not having it. And so all three of us are screaming at each other in this car, traveling at like 75 miles an hour on the highway. We got back to my mom's, and we're all exhausted. It's Labor Day in the South. It's like 150 degrees outside, you know, so we all need naps. And we went upstairs, and I'm setting my mother-in-law up in the guest room, which was my childhood bedroom. And she says to me, she was like, hey, could you open the window? I need a little air. And I was like, no, I can't do that for you. And she's like, why? I want some air. And I was like, look, there's tons of air outside, and it's free, but in here, we have central AC, and we don't open the window. And she's like, so what? I open the window at she lives in a hotel. I open the window at the hotel all the time. And I was like, you haven't paid a utility bill since 1972 is why you open the window. Like, here, my father has one legacy. It's HVAC efficiency, and we're going to respect that, right? We're not opening that window until October. And she's like, oh, whatever, man, you know? And so I went to the bathroom. I came out of the bathroom, and I smelled something very familiar in the hallway of my mother's house. Guess what it was, and guess who was doing it, right? Yeah, so I kicked the door in to my bedroom, and my mother-in-law is sitting there just hitting a glass, like a multicolored glass bowl, like bought it at St. Mark's Place or like on Spencer Gifts. Probably came with a Cat in the hat, and she's just like, what's blowing Gandalf plumes all over. I haven't smoked pot in there since 1996, And I was like, what the hell are you doing? And she goes, what's the matter? Who cares? And I was like, I do, for one, And she goes, well, nobody said not to. And I was like, the thing is, it was like the fertility clinic called us up and said, there's been a terrible accident in the lab. You're now the parents of an elderly Greek teenager. Good luck, And I was like, listen, there are things about being a mature adult that you just know, and you don't do them, okay? Because to do them would be so stupid. I can't believe you right now, okay? Listen, you don't drink hot milk on the beach. You don't make up lies about Stephen King's children. And you don't smoke marijuana in my mother's house. God damn it. He stomped out, and Erica said, I heard a lot of yelling back there. And I was like, oh, you're not going to like it at all. But the silver lining is I'm ready to be a father now, God damn it. All right, thank you so much.